Hello and welcome to Sassy Scrapbooking. In this video we're going to do a super easy, super fast Halloween card. And let's see, the images I'm going to be using is the sugar skull, and that's item number 1055D6. There is no cartridge name, so I'm going to assume that these are one of the images that Cricut gives you if you have the subscription. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, first of all, I've already inserted the image, and now I'm going to duplicate the image. What I'm trying to do is create a solid background in the shape of a skull to create the card base for my Halloween card. Now this skull image is a single layered card, so to make this a solid layer, I'm going to use the contour icon, and using my mouse I'm going to select each of the cutouts so that they become highlighted. I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here, so for the purpose of this video I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up and take us to the end of this step. Alright, now that we're done highlighting all the cutouts, all I have to do is take my mouse and click on a space away from the image on the blank portion of the screen, and my skull becomes one solid skull image. So when I was first thinking of creating this card, I thought it would be really cool and really dramatic if I had a red card base with the black cutouts on top. So I went ahead and changed the color of the solid portion of the skull and just enlarged it just a little bit so it's slightly bigger than the black cutout skull. And using the arrange icon, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the black cutout portion of the skull is on the front, and I'll place it right on top of the red card base, and I'll just do a little bit of adjusting of the red card base just to make sure that there's not too much excess red card base around the black skull cutout. So you're going to see me kind of going back and forth a couple times, and ultimately like I said, I just want to get a nice even space all around the black skull cutout. Okay, I think I'm pretty happy with the sizing right now, so I'm going to go ahead and take the black skull and just move it off to the side and duplicate the red skull, and I'm going to set that aside for a sec and kind of lower it. I'm just making adjustments here so everything fits on the screen. And taking this upper skull, I'm going to go ahead and mirror the image so that it is now mirrored and upside down. And I'm going to go ahead and select both the skulls. Using the align feature, I'm going to align to the left. You could align to the right if you want. I just like to align to the left. And now I'm going to insert a square. In this square, I'm going to go ahead and resize. And I'm going to make it a real small, narrow rectangle. And this is going to be the hinge that holds the two skulls together. So I'm going to take that hinge and I'm going to place it just at the very top of the skull, and I really want to center it, so I'm going to go ahead and select the skull as well, and then I'm going to use the align feature again and choose the center feature, and then using my up and down arrows on my keyboard with the little rectangle or the hinge selected, I'm just going to hit my upper arrow and it just takes it up in increments to where I'm going to place it right at the top of the skull. Now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and select the upper skull, and using my down arrow, I'm going to bring it down to touch on that hinge to connect the two, or the three actually. Now I can select all three pieces and use the weld feature in the edit box, and this is my card base. Now I can take the black skull and use the arrange feature and bring the skull to the front, and you can see what the card is going to look like. One last thing we need to look at is the height of the card itself, the card base. In this case it's over 12 inches in height, and this would be okay if we had a 12 by 24 inch cutting mat, but I'm going to use a 12 by 12 inch, so my paper or my card needs to be 11.5 inches in height or shorter. So selecting all the images, I'm just going to adjust the height of the card to 11.5 inches before sending it to the map preview screen. I always like looking at the images in the map preview screen one last time just to make sure that if I have text that it's attached. There's so many things that sometimes I just forget to do, and this is my last check before I send it to the Cricut Explorer. Looking at this, everything looks great, so I'm going to go ahead and send it to the Cricut Explorer. Alright, now all the pieces are cut, and here's the red background I mentioned earlier in the video that I was going to use. I thought it would look so cool with a sparkly red background. But you know, when I look at it, I mean, it looks much nicer here on the video, but in real life, it looked kind of dark. So I went ahead and I cut another solid skull shape in a lighter color, and I think this is kind of better. There's more contrast when you put the black skull. See, there's a lot more contrast, and it just really looks nicer. Over to the side here, these are all the pieces that I cut out of the black skull, and I'm going to keep those because I'll show you what I'm going to do with them later. Real quick, I'm going to just ink the edges. Now, I used a crushed velvet cardstock by Doodlebug, and I love the texture of it. It really added some pop and dimension to the card. In real life, you can't really see it on the video, but in real life it looked awesome. The only thing is that it has a white core. So I'm inking the edges, and I'm also going to have to ink the back of the skull. I'm going to use the ink to try and eliminate some of the white core color that you can actually see from the front of the card. Using some liquid glue, I'm going to go ahead and run it along the edges of the skull and some of the areas in between around the eyes and the nose. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and place it on top of the card base. I'm using a paper towel here just to kind of try to pick up the excess liquid glue because there's so many cutouts. They lift away from the card very easily. So I know I used more liquid glue than I really needed to, but with the paper towel it will just absorb the excess glue, and then I'm going to go ahead and run a brayer over the top. This will help eliminate or squeeze some of the excess glue out onto the paper towel. It's also going to help adhere the card base to the small cutout pieces. And speaking of those small cutout pieces, I mentioned them earlier in the video. And I said, we're just going to set them aside because we're going to use them later. Well, this is where we're going to use them. On the inside of the card, I just selected a few of them, and what I'm doing, I'm just going to use a little bit of liquid glue, and I'm going to place them around the edge of the card and sort of create a frame, if you will. And all that would be left is to add a sentiment to the center of the inside of the card, and the card is done. At this time, I would like to take one more moment of your time and thank you for watching my video at Sassy Scrapbooking. Please subscribe to my channel and watch my other videos. I will continue to add new videos as my adventures with the Cricut Explorer continue. Bye for now.